Hi, I'm Sydney, and I am a servant of the Almighty God. Today, continuing the series on recognizing God's omnipotence. In these times, I think it's really pertinent that we recognize that if our religious leaders and we all start recognizing God's omnipotence, many of the world's problems, if not all, can be solved, especially now. It's really pertinent now with the advent of so many wars, and we're looking forward to even more, right? This is all addressed in my book, Humanity's Inflection Point. The path that we are on, the inflection point will come once we start recognizing God's omnipotence. How? It's simple. Well, there's a lot that goes into it, but the solution comes when we recognize God and God's omnipotence that gives us what we have today. In this world, and I have to say this, we have become so godless that we see all God's creations and we attribute it to this nebulous, amorphous nature. And that is one of the worst things, because by attributing, our knowledge has advanced to the point where we can recognize the intelligence, the benevolence that goes into all the creations around us. But instead of recognizing these are the manifestations of God's omnipotence, we say it's nature created all of this. Now, what is nature? Who is nature? And I've gone over that. How does this apply? Because when we recognize God's omnipotence, we recognize that we have one creator. The visions that unfortunately that I go into in my book, these are the inspirations for humanity's inflection point. The inflection point for us, for all of us, comes when religions all recognize that what we previously attributed to nature is the work of the Almighty God, the same one God that gives, so that when we refer to the laws of nature, we are really referring to the rules of creation that are being revealed to us by our Almighty Creator, the one Creator. And so, even though, as has been granted to me in that message, diversity is His, as servants, we must honor His diversity. We recognize that just as He's created all the diverse plants and animals, He has created these races for His reasons. But we honor His diversity and we recognize we are under the one God, so that we are all brothers and sisters. And it's amazing. It only takes adversity, real adversity, for us to recognize this. When there's a tornado, there's a storm, there is some devastation, then we don't reach out and say, no one ever says, I want only, support from the blacks or the whites or the Christians or the Muslim or the Jews. No one ever says that. When you have devastation, we reach out to other human beings. We need assistance. We know that we can share organs, blood. So that shows us that we have the one Creator. And when religions recognize, we will stop the divisions and what we are actually doing. Just like we don't believe in God anymore. We don't believe in God. We say it's nature. We don't believe that the demons of deception and hate that delight in the murder and mayhem that we perpetrate for their delight. We perpetrate this because we no longer believe even though we can see the effects that they have on all of us. We see the deception, those who, for greed, the demons of greed and deception and hate, they are rampant and they are joyful in these times because we do not recognize that the miracles around us are the manifestations of God's omnipotence. We say it's nature. And so it's natural for us to hate, to try to be obsessed with greed and deception and hate. We want to reinvent the things that we know to be true. Falsehood, the demons of deception are rampant. And this is why we have, between the deception, the hate, not recognizing the brotherhood of mankind. Humanity's inflection point will turn when we recognize that science are the manifestations of God's omnipotence. These are revelations that unite us. Computers, medicine, technology unites us. But religions have divided us. So now based on religion, we have wars. Or we have leaders who are simply driven by the demons of deception and greed. And they will use that. So regardless of whether it's religious or secular leaders, but as long as they believe that we are just creations of nature, and there is no accountability to our Creator, this is what we end up with. This is the state of the world. And so in the big picture, we have to recognize, yes, there will be atrocities on all sides. This is just a consequence of our inhumanity to our brothers and sisters. We do not recognize the brotherhood of mankind. And so war is the natural consequence. It's just like, it's been like this forever, right? When we don't recognize that we are all existing in the presence of the Almighty God, we do not recognize the manifestations of God's omnipotence, we go around and we have all of this discrimination against our brothers and sisters based on clanism, right? We create these clans and says, well, I am this. And the clan could be religious. It could be based on color. It could be based on all of these things. But the demons of hate, the demons of greed and deception, we serve them when we go around and perform all the things that they delight in. They move us away from God. We are obsessed with hate. And so you may look at one particular occurrence, one incident, and say, well, no, there is a bigger picture. As long as we continue not recognizing the manifestations of God's omnipotence, that there is one Creator, that we are all brothers and sisters, we will have atrocities, we will have wars, we will be led by leaders who are obsessed and controlled by demonic forces. They are the ones who lead by deception. You know, that's what they are. It's deception. They come and because of their demonic posturing, others who are unconnected to the Almighty, their realities become distorted. Whatever the leader says, that is the truth. It's what we must follow. It becomes this cult of personalities. And with nature being such a big thing, it becomes natural then to pursue the works of the demonic forces. And again, just as we don't believe in the Almighty God, the Creator, and recognizing His omnipotence, we don't recognize the demonic forces that will always be around us and tearing us away from our Creator. And this is the consequence. As we look out and we see all these atrocities on all sides, it's simply because so many of our religious leaders have led us away, and they accept that what we are we all are the result of some natural. And you say, what is this nature? This has all this intelligence and this benevolence and the creator. Could you imagine nature deciding to create a giraffe? Nature deciding to give a spider the ability to spin a web, or in the case of spiders that may live that live and thrive without webs, or all the things that we see, the miracles around us. This turning away from God, we have become so godless that wars and atrocities are a natural consequence of that. Because as I have done in this inspired work, humanity's inflection point, the turning point will come. That inflection point will come when the religions all recognize that we are experiencing. There is no nature. Nature is used in because we have become godless and we don't want to recognize God the creator. We say nature the creator, and that takes away the accountability that he has given to us. He has given to us in the commandments. Think about if all these religious leaders, Christian, Muslim, Jews, if they would simply look at the commandments. We've gotten away from that. We have gotten away from, and this is a natural consequence. So I hope that you recognize there is no coincidence. You have not just stumbled into this. We, the individual, because with the commandments we have accountability. We can establish personal relationships with our Creator. And that's the beginning. And in time, because it's taken how many? 2,000 years for us to get to this point where now nature is the creator. And it is natural for us to be obsessed with deception and hate and greed. It has taken 2,000 years, and religions seem all to be blind. Or they serve the demons very well because they foster more hate. They foster more greed. You know how many religions that are about get rich. It's very interesting when I hear Christian religions that talk about this riches, and I said, but if you quote the Son of Man who said it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get to the kingdom of heaven, and yet so many religions are about. This is why they are doing the works of the demons of deception, hate, greed, and this is the natural consequence. In these times, we have pushed God to the side and said it's all nature. This is the natural consequence. So when these things occur, it is natural. We have created the groundwork. We have laid the groundwork, and we are reaping what we have sown. With humanity's inflection point will come when we recognize the knowledge from God that unites us, science, as it does with technology and medicine, when we recognize that comes from our Creator. And just as He's given us the commandments, we should unite, recognize His diversity, but that we are all from the one Creator. And that unites us. And so we can have differences, but we do not entertain the demons of deception, greed, and hate. And that leads us to that inflection point where humanity changes direction. We recognize God's omnipotence in our lives. This is our science. This is what we refer to as everything natural. These are the manifestations of God's omnipotence. We also recognize, of course, that we all exist in the presence of the living God. And so it's beyond sacrilegious to recognize, to see all his miracles, all the wonders of his power and his creations, and say, no, that is nature. Nature has the intelligence and the benevolence to grant all of these attributes and properties and characteristics to all the diverse creatures, to ourselves, to everything that we discover. We say, no, that is not a manifestation of God's omnipotence. That's nature. And you say, well, who is nature? What is nature? And like I said, some people will say, well, what's the difference? The difference is the accountability. Because when we recognize God, we recognize we also have to obey his commandments. Nature does not have commandments. We say, we look at the rules of creation, we say those are nature's laws, but it's then natural and there is no accountability. This is why the demons delight in it. So once again, I want to tell you to go pick up a copy. Humanity's Inflection Point, this inspired work. And I want to thank you for taking the time and recognize again, there's no coincidence. I don't know when the inflection point will come, but we all have to be informed. We have to wake up. We have to recognize that the path that we're on, we need an inflection point, and it starts with us individuals, not them. We as individuals building personal relationship with the Creator, seeking truth, recognizing his omnipotence. So once again, I want to thank you for taking the time. Until may God bless.